The clang of dishes echoed through the empty restaurant long after midnight, but Luis kept scrubbing, his hands raw and blistered. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had already finished a full morning shift and another in the evening. But when his boss told him there was no money for overtime, Luis had stayed anyway, because he needed every penny to keep his little sister fed. What Luis didn't know was that a quiet man in a faded baseball cap was sitting in the corner, watching, and that man wasn't just another late-night customer. Luis was 23 but looked older, the weight of life carved deep into his face. His mother had passed 2 years earlier, leaving him the sole caretaker of his 9-year-old sister, Sophia. They lived in a small one-room apartment above a laundromat, and every week was a battle to stretch his paycheck far enough for rent, groceries, and school supplies. The restaurant's kitchen smelled of bleach and old grease. Luis moved quickly, stacking clean plates into neat piles. His arms ached, his feet throbbed, and the skin around his knuckles had split open from constant exposure to hot water. Still, he forced a tired smile whenever another employee passed through. He couldn't afford to complain. From the dark corner booth, the man in the baseball cap sat quietly. He was dressed simply, faded jeans, scuffed boots, and a jacket that had clearly seen better days. To anyone else, he might have looked like just another tired traveler. But in truth, this man was Daniel Hart, the CEO of a nationwide restaurant chain, visiting incognito to see how one of his newest locations was operating. Daniel had noticed Luis hours ago, moving nonstop from the moment he walked in. It was well past midnight now, and while every other employee had gone home, Luis was still there, silently working. When Daniel finally approached the counter and struck up a conversation, Luis hesitated. Years of hardship had taught him to be cautious with strangers. "You've been here all day," Daniel said gently. Luis shrugged. "Someone's got to keep things running." "Do they pay you extra for these extra hours?" Daniel asked. Luis gave a faint, almost embarrassed smile. "Not exactly. But it's complicated." It wasn't until Daniel pressed a little further that Luis revealed the truth. He had been working double shifts for weeks, sometimes without pay, just so he wouldn't lose his job. His manager claimed the restaurant was struggling and couldn't afford overtime, but had hinted that if Luis refused, there were plenty of others who could take his place. Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew that wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. But more than that, it was deeply personal. He remembered his own father, working 2 jobs to keep food on the table, being exploited by employers who counted on his silence. As they talked, Daniel learned about Sophia, the little sister Luis adored, the way he saved every extra cent for her school clothes, and how sometimes he skipped meals so she wouldn't go hungry. Something inside Daniel shifted. This wasn't going to be just another CEO visit. This was going to change a life. The next day, Daniel returned, this time wearing a suit. Luis barely recognized him. The manager's face went pale as Daniel walked in, flanked by 2 senior executives. It didn't take long for Daniel to reveal who he was. "I'm Daniel Hart," he said firmly, "and this is my restaurant." The manager stammered, trying to explain away the unpaid hours, the lack of overtime, and the intimidation tactics. But Daniel had already reviewed the records. The truth was undeniable. Within minutes, the manager was dismissed on the spot. Then Daniel turned to Luis. "You've been holding this place together," he said, his voice softening. "And you've been doing it while carrying more than your share of life's weight. I can't change the past, but I can change your future." Daniel offered Luis a full-time position with benefits, triple his current pay, and flexible hours so he could spend more time with Sophia. On top of that, he handed Luis a check, enough to cover months of back pay and then some. But the real surprise came last. Daniel arranged for Sophia's school tuition to be covered until she graduated high school. Luis was speechless. His hands trembled as he tried to thank Daniel, but all that came out was a choked, "Why?" Daniel smiled. "Because once, someone did something like this for my father. And I promised myself I'd pass it on." Months later, Luis's life looked completely different. He was working in management training, learning skills that would set him up for an even brighter future. Sophia was thriving in school, and for the first time in years, there was laughter in their small apartment. One cold winter night, while walking home, Luis saw an elderly man struggling to carry heavy groceries up a flight of stairs. Without hesitation, Luis took the bags and helped him all the way to his door. The man smiled through watery eyes. That night, Luis realized something. Kindness was a cycle. What Daniel had done for him, he now felt an unstoppable urge to pass on to others. Moral of the story: true kindness isn't just about helping someone in the moment. It's about creating a ripple that changes lives for generations.